Okay, guys, let's get started with tonight's webinar. In tonight's webinar, we're going to be talking about support resistance areas. Now, support resistance areas are pretty much the basis of my strategy. Pretty much everything I do revolves around support resistance areas. I mean, I obviously do candlestick analysis too because I trade reversals, but without the support resistance areas, the candles are pretty much useless. So, I'm going to show you how to play support resistance areas on several pairs. We're going to start off with 4 pairs. I really hope we can knock 4 pairs out in the next hour. If not, we'll do 3 pairs, we'll do 2 pairs, I don't know. If I manage to do more than 4 pairs, I'll do a few more pairs. We'll just keep going with the support resistance areas until we run out. Now, does anyone have, just to kick things off, does anyone have any questions about support resistance areas specifically? Not about, trading reversals, about support resistance areas, because tonight's webinar is about support resistance areas. We are going to be doing a few other webinars in the coming weeks about other subjects, other price action subjects, but tonight is support resistance only. So are there any questions about support resistance before we get started? That is a great question. Okay, so one of the questions is, I see you're using 6-hour charts. Have you moved away from 8-hour? Do they offer better support resistance areas? That is actually something I wanted to talk about tonight. I do switch around a little more at the moment when I'm placing my support resistance areas, but I still do 8-hour, 6-hour is still what I'll mainly place on. So it doesn't really matter that much. Sometimes I will switch up to the 12-hour to place my support resistance areas. The way the market is moving at the moment, it's a little clearer for your support resistance areas if you switch around, but I'll explain more about that. Well, I said specific support resistance area questions, so I won't really be answering any questions unrelated to support resistance areas. Alan is asking, daily support resistance areas more significant? Very strong daily support resistance areas are extremely significant, but I find that support resistance areas that I place on the 8-hour are just as significant on the daily. Do I ever place support resistance that's not perfectly horizontal? Well, I believe that would be trend line, and no, I don't really use trend lines. I've got nothing against trend lines. I just don't really feel the need for them. I feel that it's easy enough to see the trend. I don't really need a trend line, and I don't really like trend line breaks. But, that's just personal opinion in the end. With SR areas, do you capture wicks or bodies? I capture bodies. We'll be looking at that soon. That's another great question. How long do you go back to see your support resistance areas? At the moment, I don't go back very far. About 1 to 2 years would be pretty much the maximum. Sometimes 2013. Sometimes 2012, 3 years. But yeah, that's not very common. But anyway, how about we get started with placing the support resistance areas, and I'll answer questions as we go. We're going to start off with New Zealand USD. There was an interesting trade on New Zealand USD from a support resistance area this week that I took. So we'll take a look at that at New Zealand USD, and we'll take a look at my trade. And I'll show you how it looks different on different time frames, which is also pretty interesting. I'm going to start with the 6-hour time frame. So basically, the first thing, and if you guys are writing stuff down, you have to write this down. This is the most important thing when placing support resistance areas. Recent data is the most important. Recent data is the most important. That's one thing that you have to remember about support resistance areas. The fresher the data, the better. So if you have data, let's say that's 3 years old, saying that the support resistance area is, wait, let me change. If you have data that's 3 years old saying the support resistance area is here, where this line is, and then there's other data saying the support resistance area is just slightly higher, but that's fresher data, that's from the last few months. Recent data is the most important. You always have to use the recent data over the old data. So we're going to be doing that for this entire webinar. Recent data is going to take precedence. Recent data is going to be more important than old data. Now, this does not mean that if there is a single bounce from a point, I'm going to move a support resistance area. I just mean if there's several bounces recently from a different level, I might adjust the support resistance area. First support resistance area. All right, I'm going to zoom out a touch. Yeah, hopefully you guys can still see the chart right now. Can you guys still see the chart okay? Because I've zoomed out a little bit, so... All right, cool. Okay, so we're going to start with New Zealand USD. We're going to start down at the bottom. Yeah, we'll zoom back in. I switched down to the 4 hour just so we could see a little more data because it's a bit tough placing support resistance areas on this pair at the moment. First one is going to go here. Now, when I first place a support resistance area, it is not confirmed yet. I just place it based on what I see on my screen at the moment. Then I'll have to move it around, possibly pull the chart back just to confirm that it is in fact a support resistance area. But this one looks pretty strong at the moment. We got 3 bounces here. Then price got stuck as it came up through it. Now, this is another thing to keep in mind. When price gets stuck moving through a potential support resistance area, that's a good sign. That means that there are buyers and sellers conflicting in this area, which is what we want to see. So even though price broke through, it's still a good sign that it got stuck here for quite a while. And then we have this bounce here. So this one already looks pretty significant, I would say. Looks like a pretty good support resistance area. Okay. Next one. Let's jump up to the 6 hour. You'll notice that, I don't know, going back, let's say a year, I used to stick to the 8 hour pretty much exclusively when placing support resistance areas. These days, I tend to switch around a little more. I tend to move from the 4 hour to 6 hour, 8 hour, sometimes 12 hour, just to kind of get a different view of the price action, a different view of what price is doing. Okay, I'm just going to pull the chart back a bit. I wonder how far back we have to go. Quite a bit. All right, so this is a problem we commonly run into, especially these days, because price is moving into areas that it hasn't been in for a long time. So I'm going to switch over to the monthly to show you exactly what I mean. So last time that price was down at these lows for New Zealand USD for a significant amount of time was back in 2010. So it hasn't been in these areas for a long time. So it makes it harder to place good support resistance areas. So you kind of have to make do with what you get at this point. Like this small patch of data we have here is pretty much all we can use unless we want to go all the way back to 2010, which generally speaking you don't want to do, because in 2010 price was moving so differently to what it is now. So going back to 2010, you generally don't want to do that. You want to stick to the last few years. So I'm going to drop back down to the 6 hour and look for for another support resistance area here. Maybe even the 4 hour, because when you're dealing with just small patches of data like we are here, your best bet is to go down to a smaller time frame like the 4 hour, because you get to see more bounces, you get to see more data. So instead of the data being condensed like it would be on the daily or the 12-hour, with the 4-hour, you get to see more bounces, and it makes clearer where the support resistance areas actually are. Anthony is asking, is there an average amount of pips between support resistance areas? I mean, kind of there is. It depends on the pair. A lot of pairs you'll find they're about 100 pips apart. All right, this one I'm not too sure about. Let's jump up a time frame. Around about here, possibly even higher. Yeah, I'm going to throw one here. I might move this at some point soon, but around about here looks okay. Let me show you why. So through here, basically what we see is we see price bouncing and also kind of forming on top of the support resistance area. So first we get a pretty big bounce there. Then price kind of forms along it for a while, comes away, bounces again, falls back, forms along it, bounces. So, you know, this isn't definitive, but it kind of suggests that price struggles in this area. And that's what support resistance is. When buyers head into an area of support and resistance, there are sellers there and they start to struggle. When sellers head into an area of support resistance, there's buyers there and they start to struggle. So basically, this is just an area in which price is struggling. And we can clearly see here that price is struggling. It's not definitive. I'd rather see a strong bounce. Bounces are better, but the fact that price is struggling is a decent sign that there might be some support resistance here. But the bounce comes later. The bounce comes here. We get a pretty solid bounce there. So that kind of confirms that this is in fact support resistance. We'll still need to confirm it further. I'm going to pull the chart back if we see anything, but for now that looks like a pretty decent support resistance area. Wait. I'm just quickly reading the questions people are asking. The drawing tool is just recording software. It's only used for recording. I'm not drawing on my chart. I'm drawing on my screen. I could draw anywhere on my screen. It's not really important. Let's keep the questions on subject, please, guys. Anyway, so next support resistance area. New Zealand USD is a bit tricky for support resistance placement. You know, we don't really have that much data to go on, and the way price has been moving, it's a bit tricky to get good support resistance areas on New Zealand USD, but that's why I picked it. I didn't want to go for just one easy pair to make it, you know, incredibly easy for me to place support resistance on it, and then you guys wouldn't really learn much. I'd rather do a pair where the support resistance is a bit tough to place because, you know, you learn more from it. So next support resistance area. Now I took a trade here, so I do know that there is support resistance around about here. So that is cheating a bit because I already know that, but I'm going to throw one up here. Yeah, we literally have no data back there, so. Okay. I'm going to switch around the time frame a bit. I even drop down to the 3 hour sometimes. I don't do the 3 hour often, but I will drop down to the 3 hour sometimes just to kind of get a different idea of where the major bounces are. So yeah, jumping down time frames and switching between the time frames kind of gives you a clear idea of where bounces are forming. And I do trade the 3 hour sometimes, but see, we have a bounce here. But then these ones are from higher up. So I'm going to place it up here, around about up here. Now keep in mind, this is a support resistance area. So as an area, you don't need to be that precise with it. Okay, that looks good. Let's see if we can place a support resistance area a bit further up. Yeah, I'm going to throw one up here. It's a bit close to the other one, but that's fine. I'm going to throw it based on these two bounces. So we can see when price came down to here, bounced away pretty solidly. Price came to here, it bounced away for a bit before breaking down. So that is a decent support resistance area. It also has some bounces here, which are good. Yeah, cool. It looks like price is moving down at the moment. So let's throw some a bit lower. These ones are a touch easier to place. So let's just go bam. Now, by this point, you should clearly see why I'm placing a support resistance area here. We got a strong solid bounce there, strong solid bounce there, and a strong solid bounce there. So that one is kind of straightforward and easy. It doesn't really need that much explanation. Let's just do one more on the bottom here. Okay. This one's a bit tougher. Yeah, okay. Let's jump up to the daily. I just want to see. Yeah, okay. So back to the 4 hour. If you've been to support resistance webinars in the past, you'll remember that I was placing support resistance areas very, very quickly. But this pair is a bit tougher to get good support resistance areas on. Okay, I'm going to throw one up here based on these two bounces here. So there's a bounce here, and then there's a kind of a bounce there. So that is kind of a sign of support resistance. This one down here, to be honest, is weak. I'm not really basing it on that much. I wish I could base it on more, but yeah, I'm not able to. So this one is a bit weak. But the cool thing about support resistance, right, especially the way I trade it, the good thing about it is that even if a support resistance area is weak, so even if it's not that great a support resistance area when you place it, it doesn't really matter, because the support resistance area is going to be confirmed by the candles that form on it. So if we place a support resistance area here like we did, now this one is a bit sketchy, we're not too sure about it. The great thing is we'll only ever use that support resistance area if a trade forms on it. So for a trade to form on it, what we'd have to see is for price to move down, and we'd have to see strong indecision forming on top of the support resistance area. So that would indicate a potential reversal trade, and we would take a reversal trade if the setup meets our criteria. So the important thing to understand is, even if the support resistance area isn't super accurate, even if it's a bit sketchy, we're placing it based on very, very little data, almost no data really. I mean, two very kind of sketchy bounces, even though we're placing it on that. If indecision forms here, so if sellers push all the way down to here, and then all of a sudden we get indecision forming right on top of the support resistance area, that is the confirmation that that is in fact support resistance. The fact that indecision is forming there and the trend is stopping there is confirmation that it is support resistance. If price just breaks straight through here and then comes back up and breaks straight through it again, and it completely ignores the support resistance area, and instead it starts bouncing from, around about here or even up there, then we realize, hey, this support resistance area wasn't right, and we won't have taken any trades from it because no trades will have formed, and we'll just adjust the support resistance area. So even with very little data, you could place your support resistance areas. You don't have to be terribly accurate. That's the important thing, and that's the thing that a lot of people, they don't understand. You don't have to be incredibly accurate. 2 bounces is enough. Even one bounce, one strong bounce is enough to place a support resistance area, because price is going to confirm that area for you. So when you place a support resistance area like here, for example, this one is placed on pretty much a single bounce, then today price, we got 2 indecision candles forming on top of that support resistance area. That was the confirmation that that is in fact support resistance, and then a trade can be taken there. Okay, someone's asking, what about the massive red candle on the 27th of January? Let's take a look. Right about here. You mean where price plummeted there? 28th of Jan. I'm not sure. That looks like it could have been news related. Usually moves that big are caused by news. News doesn't identify. When you get a bounce caused by news, it's not significant support resistance because it's kind of artificially created by news. Remember how I said recent data is the most important at the start of the webinar? Yeah, it will be recorded. So yeah, remember how I said support resistance, when you're placing support resistance, recent data is the most important. Recent data shows that this is really strong support resistance because we have all those bounces there. So yeah, I would definitely prefer to place it here. Also, we had a very significant bearish trend stalling right here on top of the area before it bounced away and then continued down. So the fact that this big strong bearish trend stalled here for a significant amount of time indicates that the support resistance area is in fact here and not at that bounce up there. Yeah, guys, the sound might not be good for some people. I mean, it really depends. So yeah, these are the support resistance areas I've placed so far. They may need some adjusting. Like I said, New Zealand USD is a very tough pair to place good support resistance on right now. You know, someone keeps asking about Euro USD. I'm not ignoring them. I'll actually answer that now, and I'll show you why it's quite tough to place support resistance areas on New Zealand USD at the moment. Euro USD is a very extreme example of this. Let's switch to the monthly, just so you guys can understand exactly how long price hasn't been down here. So Euro USD is currently sitting at 12-year lows. 12-year lows. So I was, what age was I? I was 17 last time Euro USD was down at these lows. So, you know, I'll answer your question soon, Ezekiel. So yeah, we can't really get good support resistance areas on Euro USD at the moment. The way Euro USD is moving, it's pushing into these new areas. We just don't have the data. You can't place support resistance areas when you don't have data. When you don't have fresh bounces, you can't place support resistance. It's that simple. I can't just guess that there's a support resistance area here. You know, I can't just guess that. There are no bounces. There's no data for us. So Euro USD, we just can't place support resistance on it now. You just can't really do it. We have no support resistance areas for Euro USD. Is this a big deal, and how long will this last? Generally speaking, it doesn't last long. I mean, when price moves into a new area, it will start bouncing pretty much straight away. So you'll get a bounce, and then we could place a support resistance area based on that first bounce. You get another bounce, we place a support resistance area based on that bounce. And then the more bounces we see, the more we can adjust our support resistance areas and get them more accurate. And, you know, there's a similar thing with New Zealand USD. New Zealand USD is in an area that it hasn't been since 2010. When price was falling here, you know, down into here on New Zealand USD, we couldn't really get good support resistance at this point. But the next few weeks, price has been bouncing around, or the next few months, price has been bouncing around in this area. So it makes it a lot clearer where the support resistance actually is. And then the longer price bounces around in an area, the clearer the support resistance becomes, and then we can place semi-decent support resistance areas and take trades from it. Should we avoid such a pair in this case? Yeah, you should definitely avoid trading Euro USD with my strategy, because we don't have support resistance areas, so we can't really trade it. I'm just reading questions real quick, guys. I'm a bit of a slow reader. I'm in fact a very slow reader. So I'm just scrolling up and reading all the questions that are being asked. So just give me a second. I'm not going silent because I have nothing to say. There's some unrelated questions. I think we'll just move on. Yes, there's a recording of the webinar. How many? I always have to answer that question like 50 times. It said it in the email, there's a recording. Dylan wants me to give the definition of an indecision candle. This webinar is for support resistance areas. I present this webinar with the assumption that you know my strategy, at least a little bit. Indecision candles are a very important part of my strategy. I don't want to go over them now because it's just going to take too long to discuss it. But my strategy is explained in detail on the website. I mean, there's a whole section dedicated to it. There's a link. You could check it out after the webinar. So basically, we've placed some support resistance on New Zealand USD. These support resistance areas are, at least this one down here, not too sure about it. It's a bit sketchy. The other ones are pretty decent. This one up here, I mean, we could adjust this one, play around with it. It seems a little close. I mean, there's no way we'll get trades here, but you know, we can mess around with the support resistance area and adjust it. But we've got support resistance areas for, you know, the main parts where price is moving through right now. And we've mostly placed these support resistance areas based on this data. So that's roughly, yeah, about a month worth of data. So price moved into a new area. We got about a month worth of data, and that gave us all the support resistance areas we needed, enough support resistance areas to take a successful trade today. Now I'll quickly show you the trade. The trade was quite simple. I think I just accidentally moved one of these. I think it was roughly up there. I accidentally moved it. Yeah, I think it was about there. So let's throw up dotted lines around the support resistance areas. Now I place dotted lines around support resistance areas. I place them roughly 10 pips to either side. These dotted lines are not extremely important. They're there just to, it's just a visual thing for me, really. Because it's a support resistance area, it's not a support resistance line. I'm not expecting bounces directly from the line every time. I'm expecting it from the general area. So these lines I'm placing around it, they're just a visual cue. I just place them because it kind of looks more like an area when the line is there. Now, some people in the advanced course, they don't bother placing these outer lines, because it is a bit time consuming. You know, you have to place your support resistance areas, then you have to go ahead and place lines to either side, 10 pips. But it's just something that I do because, I don't know, for me, it's just a visual thing. I prefer to have it there because it just looks more like an area when I have these lines around it. I know that answer is disappointing. A lot of the times people say, Nick, what's the reason you're placing the dotted lines? How far apart exactly do they need to be? And the answer is always, you don't really need them. As long as you understand that this center line is just an area and that price is going to bounce from that area and not specifically from the center line every time, that's all you need to know. This is just an area. We're placing support resistance areas. Just quickly reading questions. In New Zealand USD, why are you not placing support resistance areas at 7200? Nick, what about the last candle? Will you trade it? Again, this is about placing support resistance areas, guys. It's not about taking trades. But since you asked, no, there's definitely no trade here. You don't take a trade unless it's bouncing from support resistance. I mean, this candle really means nothing at the moment. It just means indecision. There's a struggle between buyers and sellers, but you want to enter a trade where buyers are strongest. You want to enter a long trade where buyers are strongest. Right in the middle here, buyers aren't stronger. So no, it's definitely not a trade. Okay, so let's do some AUD USD support resistance areas real quick. AUD USD, a little bit easier to place support resistance areas on this pair because I don't know, it's been in this area and bouncing around pretty obvious bounces and pretty strong bounces. So we'll just rush through this pair and we'll place the support resistance areas. Now, what I like to do, and I didn't do the first time, is just create a bunch of duplicate lines and then pull them down. So first one is going here. Now, do I really have to explain why there's a support resistance area here? I'm gonna drop down to the 6 hour. Yeah, around about here. So do I really need to explain why there's a support resistance area here? I mean, it's really, really obvious. We got strong bounce there, strong bounce there. So this one is really obvious. Yeah, you can go down to the 4 hour if you want. It doesn't really matter that much. I switch around between the time frames just to get a clear picture of what's happening and where the bounces are actually forming. 6 hour, 4 hour, 8 hour, you know, just switch around and see where you want to place your support resistance areas. All right, next one. Around about here. Now, again, this is obvious. We've got a bounce along there, bounce here, kind of a bounce there, price got stuck along here, price got stuck on its way up through here, bounce there, bounce there, bounce there. So we can see a huge contrast here. New Zealand USD, we were kind of struggling to place the support resistance areas. This pair, so far, easy. It's just the bounces are all forming in the same place, and we got a lot of recent data indicating that the bounces, indicating where the support resistance actually is. one around about here, quite obvious one again. It depends on your provider. So we got a bounce there, bounce there, bounce there, bounce there. I mean, and this week we got bounces through here. So I know this is very easy, and I don't want to show you just easy stuff. That's why I started with New Zealand USD. I just want to show you the contrast. Placing support resistance areas is not always a hard task, you know? It's not always a challenge. It's a challenge sometimes on some pairs when it's moving into new areas, but most of the times placing support resistance areas is pretty straightforward, and you can get it done real quick. I'm going to place one, I don't know, should it be up here? Maybe roughly there. Let's pull chart back a bit. Can we pull it back? No, not really. Oh well. Page down. All right, I'm going to place a base just on this bounce here. I mean, there's kind of two bounces around here. You know, first bounce there, then it came up again and it bounced again. Also kind of a bounce here, not really. And when price came down, it kind of got stuck here for one candle and then kept moving down. So yeah, this one is kind of obvious. Not as obvious, but you know, still it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to place one here based solely on this bounce. This was actually a pretty decent trade here. Actually, I'm not sure if that was a trade. Yeah, I don't think this would have been a trade because this support resistance area is placed based on this bounce. We don't really have any other bounces to confirm it. So I'm going to place it based on this bounce. We're going to place another one. Let me adjust this one and get it right. I think about here is okay. I mean, see price dropped down to here and then bounced away. Kind of dropped down to here and bounced away again. This one kind of pushed below, but we got a wick bounce here and then we got a pretty nice bounce there. That's the most recent one. Recent data is the most important, as I always say. So that looks okay. I mean, this one I'm not too sure about, but again, even if you're not too sure about support resistance areas, you know, just throw them up anyway. Throw them up as best you can, and then, you know, you just let price confirm them. That is the most important thing really about placing support resistance areas. You just have to place them with confidence, right? Price is going to confirm your support resistance areas. And by what I mean by price is going to confirm it is once you place a support resistance area, if it's right, next time price approaches it, it's probably going to react to that support resistance area. If it's wrong, next time price approaches it, it's probably going to ignore that support resistance area. If price ignores a support resistance area a few times, then you just throw it off. 2-3 times that price completely breaks through your support resistance area, just get rid of it. If price approaches your support resistance area and you get a strong bounce, that's the confirmation you need that you've placed the right support resistance area. So just be confident and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't stress out and don't try to place them perfectly every time. This one here, I don't really know for sure where it is. You know, we don't have a clear idea of where the support resistance is. I'd say it's roughly around about here, this area, but it could be a bit higher, could be a bit lower. But I'm going to place it here for now, and price will confirm this area for me. When price approaches this area, if we get some bounces from it, if price forms along it, then that would be the confirmation that price, that it is in fact a support resistance area. So that's the important thing, and that's the thing you have to remember. Price will confirm your support resistance areas for you. Place your support resistance areas with confidence, rely on most recent data, and I'm not sure what you mean. Do I use my support resistance areas on different time frames? Yes. Support resistance areas you place on the 6 hour, you can use on the 8 hour, you can use on the 12 hour. We're switching between the time frames to place them, so yeah, you can use them on different time frames, no problem. 22 swing low. Can you please stop typing in all caps? How often should we revise support resistance areas? I revise mine once a week, especially for pairs like New Zealand USD where it's not clear. I revise them once a week just to kind of clear up and adjust support resistance areas. Why not put one at 0.830? Let's take a look. So you're saying a support resistance area should go here. Is that what you're saying? 0.80. Yeah, around about here is what you're saying. Okay, let's check it out. Just gonna make a different color so I can tell the difference. I mean, I don't really see why you want to place a support resistance area at 0.830. It just has a single bounce here. Whereas here we have, at the one above it, 0.8060, we have 2 bounces. So that is more clear. That seems like stronger support resistance. Let's drop down to 3 hour. Check it out with that little bit more data. See when price moved down here, it formed along there. It looks like price dropped down because of news real quick and then moved away. Yeah, I definitely prefer having it at the 0.860. But like I said, you can adjust this as time goes by. You can adjust the support resistance area as price moves into these areas. But this one right now looks like a stronger support resistance area to me. It has a bounce, price formed along it and then came up. It has another bounce here and it has another bounce there. So this looks like the stronger support resistance area to me at the moment. If a support resistance area is unclear, just switch around the time frames. Mess around with your time frames, and usually switching to a lower time frame, you get a little bit more data, and it'll make the support resistance area a bit more clear. Okay, I'm just reading all the questions real quick, guys. That's why I'm not speaking. I think we can move on. Yeah, do I use trend lines? No, I don't really use trend lines in my trading. I understand the value of trend lines, and I think trend lines are cool to use, but I just don't feel I need them personally. I'm doing fine with support resistance areas and indecision, so I don't really need trend lines in my trading. And I'm not a huge fan of trend line breaks. I just feel that they're a bit hit and miss. And I feel that when you're placing a trend line also, it tends to be hard to tell when the break happens. So, you'll place this trend line, you'll get a candle breaking above it, closing above it, and then it'll come back down. I don't really like trend lines personally, but it's up to you. Yeah, Tracy pretty much hit the nail on the head. There's no reason to overcomplicate my strategy. My strategy is based on two things: support, resistance areas, indecision candles. There's a lot of information about indecision candles and candlesticks on the website. It's all free. I'll link you guys to that in the email I send with a link to this webinar. I'll link you to a webinar about indecision candles. That way you guys, for anyone who doesn't understand that, you guys can go over that. And I'll link you to more information on support resistance areas, definitely. But yeah, in the end, there's no reason to overcomplicate my strategy. For me personally, I don't really need support resistance areas. Some people do use them with my strategy and it works. I don't really need trend lines, I meant to say. Obviously, I need support resistance areas. For me, I don't really need trend lines. And some people do use trend lines with my strategy. Trend lines in the end are price action. So trend lines are a form of price action, and price action is pretty much the way to go in Forex trading. As long as you understand price action, then you're way ahead of people who are trading solely on indicators. Price action is pretty much the key to Forex trading. Trend lines are a form of price action. I think trend lines are fine. I just personally do not need them in my trading. So yeah, for me, they're not needed, but if you want to use trend lines, go ahead, and you can mix trend lines with support resistance areas and with the way I trade. Trend lines do work with it. So yeah, feel free to use it. I'm going to quickly throw up these because we're getting a bit off subject here, to be honest. This webinar is a touch messy. Okay, let me quickly. You know what? I'm not going to throw the areas around it because it's just going to waste time. We'll move on to another pair. Euro JPY. Euro JPY is a little trickier than AUD USD. Not as tricky as New Zealand USD to place support resistance areas on. But it is trickier than AUD USD. So I'll go ahead and place some support resistance areas on Euro JPY. Okay, so actually let me do the duplicate thing, makes it easier. Right, so first support resistance area, I'm just going to throw it down here. I'm going to switch to a small time frame just so we see a little more data. 4 hours, I'll go 6 hour for now. All right, I'm going to throw a support resistance area down here based on this bounce. Now, do we have any other data? No, we don't have any recent data, I don't think. Oh, actually, here, how long ago was this? 2013, October 2013. So this data is fine. I mean, going back to 2013 for your support resistance areas, you can do that if you have to. If you don't have that much data that's like 2.5 years old is fine. So in 2013, we have some very strong bounces from here. Strong bounce there, strong bounce there. So that indicates there's some support resistance here. So going back to modern times, 2015, or, well, yeah, that's 2015 still. So we have a pretty, I wouldn't really call it a bounce so much as kind of price crashed and then it had a huge gap and then it reversed from here. So it's not so much a bounce, but I'm just going to throw it up there because we do have what appears to be kind of a bounce. This is one of these support resistance areas that you place based on very little data, you know. I'm placing it based on flimsy data. This bounce here and then some stuff in 2013, those two things together, it's flimsy. But the cool thing is if price pushes down to here, so if in the coming weeks price pushes down to here, and then we get like a really strong indecision candle forming right on top of our support resistance area, then that is the confirmation I need to to like know for sure that this is a good support resistance area, and I'm willing to take a trade there. If we get a setup forming there, that is the confirmation. So I'll throw one up there. Let's find the next support resistance area. Price is forming along here today. We also have some bounces through here. Bounce there, bounce there. Some wick bounces here. Wick bounces aren't as significant, but you know, wicks do play some role. Because, you know, a wick bounce. So see, this is a wick bounce. These are body bounces. I prefer body bounces, where the body bounces away from the area. But wick bounces like this one here and that one there, they're also somewhat significant, because a wick bounce is probably a body bounce just on a smaller time frame. So we'll see if it's the case this time. This was 4th of the 2nd, 2015. Let's drop down to the 1 hour. So you can see that on the 1 hour, the bounce doesn't look as extreme. If we go down to the 30-minute, if we go down to the 15-minute, it will look more like it's bouncing from this area. So wick bounces are somewhat significant. They're not as significant, but you know, it's something that kind of gives you a bit of extra assurance that there is in fact support resistance here. Yeah, we can't pull the chart back. So I'm placing this support resistance area based on these few bounces here, bounce there, bounce there, bounce here, bounce here. And then this week price formed along here. This actually led to a failed trade this week. Some people took a long reversal here in the advanced course, but most people failed this trade. So they tried to take a reversal from this area, but it just clearly didn't reverse. It pushed down first and then it spiked up. So yeah, that led to a failed trade, unfortunately, but it's still a support resistance area. I mean, you can't win every trade. Next one, I'm going to throw these bounces here, a bounce there, bounce there. Yeah, around about here. Like I always say, recent data is the most important. Most recent bounces from here. There's good too, though. Yeah, I'm going to throw it roughly around about here. The most recent bounce is here, so I want to get it closer to that most recent bounce. By the most recent bounce, I mean this one. So we got a bounce there. We got a strong bounce there that led to a good trade. We got a bounce here. Some wick bounces there and there. Like I said, wick bounces aren't as significant. So yeah, that looks pretty decent. Next support resistance area. This is these are two strong bounces kind of close together. Then yeah, price formed along here. Yeah, price formed along there. Price bounced here, price bounced here. So yeah, this is a pretty decent support resistance area here. It doesn't have that many bounces, but the two big bounces it has, especially this one, it's a very strong bounce. So, you know, that's a good sign. Followed by some smaller bounces all the way through here. Price forming along the area. You know, these are all signs of support resistance. These kinds of moves are somewhat annoying usually. These kind of sudden bounces. It makes it hard to place good support resistance areas because, you know, I would say there's a nice reversal trade here. So I would say the support resistance is about here, but this one's bouncing from higher. So this one is a bit tough to place. We'll move the chart back a bit, see if we can clear things up. And then if not, yeah, we can't. If not, I'll jump down to a smaller time frame. A smaller time frame may help us clear things up a little bit. We'll jump down to the 4 hour. Looks about the same on the 4 hour. Looks about the same on the 3 hour, yeah. So not really sure about this one. Go back to 6 hour or 8 hour even. Yeah, okay. I'm going to throw this one up here. Now, like I say, this one, it's a bit sketchy. It's one of those ones where we place it based on, you know, 1 or 2 bounces, and they're not very accurate, but it's one of these ones where you just place it and price will confirm it for you. So if we get strong indecision forming on the area, it will confirm that it's a good support resistance area. If not, then we just remove the support resistance area or we adjust it. More likely than not, we're going to have to adjust this support resistance area as price comes back up here. So when price comes up here, it will bounce away from around about here, or possibly lower, possibly higher. And that will give us a chance to readjust that support resistance area. Yeah, this looks pretty decent for EuroJPY. Yeah, okay, cool. Let me quickly zoom in. So yeah, there was a trade here. I can't remember what time frame it was on. I think it was 4 hour. Yeah, a few people entered a long trade here today, but it was entered around about here. It's actually based on the support resistance area. I think the support resistance area was a bit higher at the time, but that doesn't really matter too much. The point is, you can see price pushed up a little bit and then it just came down and it took out stop losses. So yeah, this was a failed trade taken today, unfortunately, using my strategy. But yeah, you know, failed trades happen. You can't really do much about it. Stefan, you're asking if there's a support resistance area at 137.67. Yeah, I could quickly take a look. I want to do support resistance areas for USD JPY, so this webinar is going to go a bit over time. So you're saying 137.67. Yeah, so this one is a lot more obvious. I mean, this one was, it is in fact a support resistance area, but this one's like really obvious and it really stands out. All right, let me zoom back out. So with this support resistance area here, wait, if I zoom back in and then pull the chart back a bit. Yeah, okay, that's better. With this support resistance area here, it's quite an obvious support resistance area, but it's a good support resistance area. I mean, that bounce there, it's a very significant strong bounce. And it's followed by this bounce here. That's another very significant and very strong bounce. So this one is a bit of an obvious support resistance area. And yeah, it is in fact a support resistance area. I got a little bit low. 137.50 I'd say is roughly where it is. You know, 5, 10, even 15 pips on EuroJPY, it's a fast-moving pair. It doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, good job, man, on spotting that one. A lot of people have been asking about dynamic support and resistance. I think a lot of people misunderstand the term. Dynamic support resistance is really just about adjusting your support resistance areas a lot quicker. I used to have the same support resistance areas for months and months, never used to switch them. But these days, price is moving differently, so I switch my support resistance areas a lot more often. And that is what I class as dynamic support resistance. All that means is we're a little bit more dynamic with how we adjust our support resistance areas. I adjust them on a weekly basis now. I move them around and I'll switch around my time frames to place my support resistance areas instead of doing it only on the 8 hour. It's just about being a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more loose and adjusting your support resistance areas a lot quicker to current price action. Is it better to define support and resistance on a line chart? I don't really like using a line chart to place my support resistance areas, but I will sometimes switch to a line chart. to kind of clear things up. It does help to clear things up sometimes, the line chart, but I prefer to see the candles when I'm placing my support resistance areas. Personally, I like seeing the candles. But yeah, if you want to, you can switch to a line chart just to kind of give you a clearer idea of where the support resistance is. It's up to you. I don't do it. Like, I do switch to it sometimes just to see, but yeah, I prefer the candles. The candles paint. They give you more data, and more data is important. If I want less data, all I have to do is go up to a higher time frame. You know, I prefer having more data. What about minor support resistance? Minor support resistance, it's not something I'll place on my chart. I'll pay attention to it, but I won't place it. I want to quickly... we don't have much time. But I do really, really want to do some USD JPY support resistance areas because I haven't been trading USD JPY. I'm not a fan of USD JPY. I don't really like the pair that much. But I understand that a lot of people do like this pair and a lot of people want to trade it. So I am going to be doing USD JPY support resistance areas from now on, and I'll be posting them to the website. So I'll be sharing my support resistance areas for USD JPY. So I wanted to quickly do some USD JPY support resistance areas tonight, to just kick things off, really. It is a bit tough placing on USD JPY. I would say just as tough as New Zealand JPY. New Zealand USD. But let's get started anyway. Well, actually, that one's kind of obvious. I was just saying it's tough to place support resistance areas on USD JPY, but look at that one. That one's like, it didn't look like it was going to be that easy, but bounce there, wick bounce here, strong bounce there, strong bounce here, kind of a bounce here, kind of a bounce there. So that one's simple straight away. That one was easy, but I don't think they're all going to be that easy. So let's see if we can find another one. Yeah, see, this one's a bit more of a challenge. Like right off the bat, we could place it here because we have a strong bounce there and then price kind of stalled as it came up through here. Or we could place it down here because we have a bounce here. We have some extra data. Okay, I'm going to place the support resistance area here. I am somewhat tempted to place it down here. Here, based on this bounce. But here looks like it would be a better support resistance area. This one, yeah, I'm going to place this one here and this one here. Now, why am I placing this top one here? Reason is because we do have a strong bounce there. We have a bounce here from the area. So that's two bounces. Bounce here, bounce there. We do have a strong bounce here too. So yeah, check out that bounce. That one's pretty obvious too. So we are seeing quite a few bounces from this area. So yeah, I'll throw this one up. This one kind of like, I want to place it there, but does it really belong there? Or does it belong up here from this bounce? Because this is the major bounce. You know, this is like the big bounce, but then we have two smaller bounces. Well, we have one and then one happening right now. So, you know, this is one of those tough situations because you're like, where do I place it? Where do I place it? Where should the support resistance area go? I'm not sure. But see, this is a really good example of what I was saying before. You let price confirm your support resistance areas for you. So let's pretend this part here. Actually, you know what I could do? Wait, can I do that? One sec. Tool, ellipse, frame. No, that doesn't work. Give me a second, guys. I think I could do it with a line tool, like a white line. Okay. I'm just gonna erase these candles here with my drawing tools, kind of. I'm not doing a fantastic job, but I just want to make this point here. Okay. So imagine, we go back 4 or 5, 6 candles where we weren't having that bounce now, right? So when you look at this, what would you be thinking? You'd be thinking, should I place this support resistance area here based on this strong bounce here? Or should I place it up here based on this bounce? So, we're not really sure where to place our support resistance area. We could place it up here or down here. So with something like this, you just make a choice. You say, okay, I'm going to place my support resistance area up here. So let me delete this. So let's say you said your choice was, I'm going to place it up here. Now, when you placed it up here, price would have come up here where it is right now, and we start to see a bounce from it. So see, this bounce, if price does in fact bounce away, it hasn't really bounced away yet, but if it does bounce away, that is the confirmation that this support resistance area that you placed was wrong, and that the support resistance was in fact here the whole time. Had you placed it here at first based on this bounce, then this, if it does in fact reverse, which it looks like it might, that is the confirmation you need to tell you that that was the right support resistance area. Would I short at 120.15? There's more to it than that. You can't just take a short based on the support resistance area. There's more to my strategy than that. Would I take a trade here? I can answer that in a second. Let me zoom in. First things first, we need indecision to form. I can't make a decision on a trade until the candle closes. If I jump in short here, before this candle closes, by the time this candle closes, it can have moved up all the way to here. So I need the candle to close. If the candle closes like this, like it is now, I don't know, there may be a trade here. Let's take a quick look. This is why I don't like doing webinars on a single subject. But I can't do webinars on my whole strategy because I can't fit that all into an hour. But whenever I do a webinar on a single subject, I always get thrown off track by people asking me questions that aren't related to that subject. And I always feel bad because I always feel like I should answer everyone's questions. So here I am going a bit off subject. Is there a trade here? Potentially, if this candle closes as is, I may potentially jump in short here. Now, the other thing you have to look out for is risk-reward ratio. That is pretty much the most important thing. See, I wouldn't want to enter this trade until here, actually, because that's a psychological level. But let's just imagine I did enter here, for example. 20 pip stop. Yeah, I mean, there is potential. If the candle closes exactly as is, there is potential to take a trade here based on this resistance area. First target would be roughly 20 to 30 pips. Second target would be at the support area, about 50 pips. I'm not saying to anyone that you should enter this trade. This trade is far from complete. Not even close to complete. When did this candle open? This candle opened at 4. So it's going to close in 45 minutes. So in 45 minutes, that will be the first step. If the candle closes as it is now, that will be the first step. But then, you need a few other things after that. And I don't want to get into that here because that's not what this webinar is about. This webinar is about support resistance. We're already 10 minutes over. So I'm going to quickly finish placing support resistance on USD JPY. Very quickly finish placing support resistance on USD JPY because I am absolutely starving. We ordered sushi tonight. and it was supposed to arrive like a good 45 minutes before the webinar, but it arrived very, very late. So I have not eaten pretty much all day, and I've got this delicious sushi sitting for me. So I want to finish up the webinar and go enjoy my sushi. Yeah, that's a good thing about sushi. I can eat it cold, so. So where is this support resistance area? I think about here. I mean, here it looks okay. Because we got this strong bounce here. Then we got, not much through there, I don't know. We got a bounce there and a bounce there, and then a bounce here, and then another bounce there. So yeah, this one's a good support resistance area. I mean, it's a bit, like through here, it didn't perform too well through here. But you know, you are going to get times where your support resistance areas aren't perfect. They're not always going to bounce right from your support resistance area. It's not always going to be perfect. Sometimes price breaks through. Could be news related. It could just break through because it does. I mean, this was a strong bearish trend here, very strong bearish trend, and it kind of didn't really pay much attention to our support resistance area. This was a strong bullish move. It didn't really pay much attention to our support resistance area, but overall, you know, we do have a fair bit of evidence saying that there is support resistance here. So I will go ahead and place a support resistance area there. Damn it. Around about here, maybe. They're not the easiest pair to place support resistance on. Yeah, so this one is like, it's really hard to see why I'm placing it here, but we've got one bounce there, right? One bounce there. Price came up through here, it stalled for a single candle there. Not very significant, but I'll take it because I don't have very much data. Kind of a bounce here, not really that good, but like I say, I'll take it. This one, you know, that's a pretty nice bounce. So even though like when you just look at this support resistance area, it doesn't look that good. But like if you look at the subtle bounces, you kind of start to get a clearer picture that there is in fact support resistance here. And this one is another one of those ones that you place it as best you can. Okay, I'm placing it based on these few bounces I see around about here. If it's wrong, price will reveal that to me when it pushes down here. If it's right, we'll start to see some indecision, we'll start to see bounces from it, and we can trade those. So it's one of those support resistance areas that we just have to adjust it with time. Just like this one, we're going to need to adjust this one with time. Most recent bounces are here, so I'm going to push this one up here. I'm going to put it at the most recent bounces. And this one, the most recent bounces are clearly here. So I'm going to put it here where the most recent bounces are. Like if I was basing it on these bounces here, oh, sorry. If I was basing it on these three bounces here, I'd place it at the 117.70 or 68, where it is now. But it looks like the support resistance area is migrated a bit, and I want to place it based on the most recent bounces. So I'm placing it at the 117.87, 20 pips away, but that's where the most recent bounces are. And price will clear up for us where the support resistance actually is next time it pushes down into this area. Someone's asking the 117.34. Yeah, that looks like a pretty decent support resistance area. You know, with a support resistance area like this one, the 117, I have it at 25, but it's just 10 pips, so it's not really that much of a difference. But I'm going to place it here at 117.20 to 25. Yeah, I'm going to place it here. Now this one, you know, you don't have those obvious strong bounces, but you kind of have like price forming along here. You have a bounce there. You have a lot of wick bounces here. What do you mean 1,000 pips? These support resistance areas are about 67 pips apart. 88 pips, 88 pips, nowhere near 1,000 pips. Gregory. When would the next recruitment for the advanced sushi? I mean, course be? Oh, you're from Belgium, man. Whereabouts in Belgium are you from, Gregory? Whereabouts in Belgium are you from? I'm just asking because my girlfriend is from Ghent. I'm actually going to Belgium. I was supposed to go in February, but I think we're going in May. All right. Yeah, well, my girlfriend's from like the West Coast. Belgium is awesome. I love it. Anyway, sorry. Let's let's get back on track. So, USD JPY support resistance areas. These support resistance areas, these ones are pretty decent. The lower ones, not as obvious. I've switched to the 12-hour. I kind of like on the 12-hour, you see these a bit more clearly. Yeah, it looks pretty decent on the 12-hour. So, this is why you switch between time frames. Sometimes, like, you'll be on the 4-hour, for example, and there's just so much data on the 4-hour because price action is so spread out over the 4-hour candles that, it becomes hard to place support resistance areas. So sometimes when you get that, you just pop up to a larger time frame, go to the 12-hour, and the 12-hour, it condenses the price action and it shows you the most important price action. And when you see the most important price action, then you kind of start to see where the support resistance areas are. But sometimes, you can condense it too much and you don't see enough information. So that's why we have to switch time frames. That's why we go 4-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour. On USD JPY, it looks like, we have to switch to the 12-hour to kind of get a better idea of where the support resistance is. So the 12-hour looks good here. Maybe 8-hour. Yeah, on these time frames, it looks pretty decent. I'm just reading questions real quick, guys. Where am I based? I was based in Edinburgh, but I recently moved to the north of England. I moved to North England because I want to buy a house, and it was just really hard to come down from Edinburgh every time I wanted to look at a property. A 4-hour train trip, 5-hour, 6-hour, depending on where the property is. But I moved down to Sheffield now. I'm living in Sheffield, South Yorkshire, North England. And yeah, I'm looking, around the centre of the UK, North England area to buy a house. So yeah, I'm in the UK. Yeah, Edinburgh was awesome. I just wanted to be a bit closer to London so I can hop on the train and head over to France when I want to. And no, I don't really look for divergence. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap up this webinar. I mean, we have some support resistance areas. I'm going to place these support resistance areas on the website too. And I'll link you guys to the page with all my support resistance areas. That way you can compare them to yours. We will be doing another webinar very soon, and I'll be doing that webinar on my strategy as a whole, because, you know, a lot of people have asked questions about that today. So I'll cover things in a bit more detail. But I hope in this webinar you kind of got a better idea of how to place support resistance areas, and you learned a few things. Someone's asking, do I use New York close daily charts? Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. Depends, like sometimes I'll use different charts, but I believe these are New York close. But anyway, guys, yeah, I'm going to call an end to this webinar. So thank you very much for attending. I'll be posting this webinar to YouTube. I'll be sending out a link. I'll be sharing a link to my support resistance areas page where you could check out all my support resistance areas. And I will also be giving you guys a few links to other parts of my strategy, like recent webinars I've done on other parts of my strategy, so you could check it out for those of you who don't really know my strategy well. Also, keep an eye on the blog. I post weekly analysis to the blog. Didn't post any analysis this week because of this webinar, but I do otherwise post weekly analysis to the blog. And, you know, that gives you an idea of where my support resistance areas are and where I'm looking to actually take trades. So yeah, see you guys later. Thank you for attending.